90% of Bitcoin has already been mined. Yes, most people already know that there are only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. That is the total supply. But the mining process allows for more and more Bitcoin of that 21 million to come into the circulating supply. It started out that approximately every 10 minutes, 50 Bitcoin were mined and put into the circulating supply. That continued for 4 years. Eventually, we got the halving, went from 50 to 25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. We then went from 25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes for 4 years down to 12.5. That continued for 4 years. And then we got the last halving, which took us from 12.5 to 6.25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. That's about 900 Bitcoin per day coming into the circulating supply. But now we have achieved in the first 12 years or so, 90% of all Bitcoin are now mined and in circulation. Miners currently receive that 6.25 Bitcoin each block that they mine, and after the next halving, it'll drop to 3.125 Bitcoin every time they mine a block. Mining will continue. The mining process will continue until 2140, the year 2140. As you can see here, this is the total circulating Bitcoin. And as you can see, it is only going to continue to increase all the way until we get to 21 million total Bitcoin. If you then go ahead and you look at this other chart we have with the total circulating Bitcoin, you can see as well, it's just up and to the right. That's how we do it. We're just going to keep going until we get to 21 million. So how many Bitcoin are there? Well, you can see here that there are 18,978,781 Bitcoin that are in existence already. That means that there are just over 2 million Bitcoin that are left to be mined. That's 90% of Bitcoin already issued or mined. And there's 900 new Bitcoin coming into the market each and every day. And so when you start to think about this, obviously Bitcoin is just a supply and demand equation. The supply is fixed, the total supply. And the incoming supply is programmatic, that supply schedule, 900 Bitcoin per day. We know it, we can prove it, we know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow as well. And when it happens, we can prove it then as well. But the demand is the thing that everyone continues to try to model. And so you're trying to understand, do more or less people want Bitcoin than they did 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? And what we have seen is demand has continued to increase. But it may not be just that simple, that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in circulation once all of them have been mined. According to Chainalysis, there's about 3.7 million Bitcoin that they estimate have been lost based on analyzing address activity. Now, this isn't a precise number because it's hard to actually understand how many Bitcoin have been lost. Sometimes you just have somebody who got a bunch of Bitcoin, they held it for 10 years and you think it was lost, but then all of a sudden the coin moves and you say, oh, somebody still must have control or access to that wallet or that address. And so this is an estimation. It's about 3.7 million they estimate have been lost. A further 1 million Bitcoin are suspected to be held by Satoshi Nakamoto, and it's untouched, which is part of the beauty of Bitcoin, is that the creator had the genius to create Bitcoin, but was humble enough to walk away. Now, could those coins move at some point in the future? Sure, but it's unlikely. And even if they did, nothing would necessarily change about the network. People would just begin speculating about who Satoshi is and where they are, why did they come back, and what does that mean? But ultimately, it would be no different than other dormant coins moving after a very long time. And so these numbers are heavily debated. Is it really 1 million coins held by Satoshi? Is it 800,000? Is it somewhere in between? Or is it a different number? Nobody actually knows. We can simply look at the on-chain metrics and do our best to try to guess what that is. So between lost coins and what Satoshi holds, it is not fully understood, but we do have some estimates. Now, if we go ahead and we look at the Bitcoin circulating supply as a percent of the 21 million total Bitcoin, you can see here that 90% of that total supply has now been issued or mined. And that gives us an inflation rate of about 1.88%. The beauty is that the Bitcoin inflation rate is closer to the Fed's 2% target than the Fed has been all year. So Bitcoin doing a great job to actually obtain somewhere that is much, much lower than the central banks that have variable monetary policies. And then lastly, if we go ahead and we look at those halvings, what you can see here is the lines that are drawn vertically. You can see those are the actual halving moments, but the price itself continues to increase significantly post-halving. And when you see that, what you can tell is that regardless of what people say, the halving has never been priced in before. You usually hear people argue that the halving in Bitcoin is priced in. And what they are saying is that it is a market efficient argument. Everyone has the same information. Everyone knows when the halving is coming, and therefore it gets priced in. Unfortunately, that completely ignores the fact that everyone in the market doesn't know about the halving. They can't even describe how it works. They don't know when it's going to happen. And the people who show up post-halving have no clue that it already occurred. And so naturally what we get is we get 21 million total Bitcoin in the supply. We've got 90% of them that have already been mined or issued now. And this is likely just to continue. Bitcoin does not care what's going on in politics, in any sort of geopolitical disagreement. They do not care what's going on with public health crisis. It simply produces block after block after block of transactions. It is a programmatic, transparent monetary policy. It's the most disciplined central bank in the world. And it continues to just do exactly what it was built to do, to be robust, to be resilient, and to continue to protect our purchasing power.